Hello and welcome to Buildings of Tomorrow. My name is John Lester, and in today's episode we are talking about bringing 3D scanning into the delivery phase and using it as its own discipline to help derive value not just through that delivery phase but also through the operational phase. I'm joined today by Kevin Bauer. He is the lead for BIM and Digital Twin at Siemens Smart Infrastructure in Europe. Kevin, thank you for joining us.
Hi, welcome John. Really happy to be here again today.
It's an absolute pleasure. We always have a great discussion, so I'm excited about having another one today. In the past, we've talked a little bit about BIM and the digital twin, constructing this through the BIM process, constructing that level of detail into that digital twin to really enable not just all the benefits that we know BIM as a process brings, and you as a certified trainer at Building Smart International know and understand that as well as anybody, but also leveraging that information, building that operational twin, which enables us to find benefits in that process. And through those discussions, we've touched a little bit on integrating 3D scanning almost as its own discipline as part of that delivery phase. As we jump into that, let's start at the start. Give us an idea. Why did this idea come about? Why did you start to think about 3D scanning in this way? And what was it that created or drove you to take the plunge with 3D scanning in these particular projects?
For us at Siemens Smart Infrastructure, it's all about optimizing the billing operations from a technical facility management perspective and from a energy perspective. And there we work a lot on the topic digital twin. So how can we combine BIM data, IoT, and billing automation data to enhance, again, energy and technical billing operations? But the big question was every time, how do we get to this digital twin? Digital twin, from a definition, is the digital representation of a digital asset, of a physical asset, which also allows the command and control. But as we know, the construction industry is a little bit chaotic. And, from our experience, we know we have some often hard times, getting really to this as-built, which is, the digital representation. And there we thought about, why not integrating mobile 3D scanning into the construction process to bring BIM from an as-planned phase to an as-built phase, or get 3D scans, which we can take then to check against the as-built models, to then afterwards control the contractors, the electrical, mechanical, and the structural contractors, to check if, all the as-built documentation delivered is really as-built, because a digital twin is just as good as the data it has.
Yeah, right. So that process, because a construction phase, a delivery phase is a crazy time at different stages throughout that process. You had that experience that when you got to the end of that delivery phase, those as-built drawings, which really should be updated and represent exactly what's handed over on completion day, they weren't up to the standard or accuracy that you expected.
Exactly, yeah. It was like this at the ASPAM project in Vienna, which we talk all the time. Yeah, it was like this, that we had these 3D scans, and then we sat together with the building owner and asked the installer, because we already checked it in advance. Lovely installer, we checked up your as-built documentation, but your as-built documentation is you just changed the name from your execution design and change the name to as-built, but it's not as-built because we see it from the 3D scans, And he said, he does it every time like this, because he said it's industry standard.
Right. So as an industry, sometimes we're not really delivering these as-built drawings as the name suggests, and that leaves us a big gap, especially when you want to start, like you describe, using those drawings as the basis for operational activities. Whether that's maintenance or space optimization or location tracking or whatever it might be. The detail and the data it directly impacts the ability for those kind of operations to work well. So you went to the construction phase, you realized that information that's handed over on the last day, on handover day, doesn't give you the level of detail or the accuracy that was required. How then did you build this 3D scanning approach into your process in this Aspern project, as an example?
It's really important to really integrate 3D scanning and 3D mobile scanning into the construction process. So what we did is, let's say we went through the construction schedule and thought about, how could we integrate it as its own discipline to at the end have really as built 3D scans. And then let's say we identified that we have three main phases. Phase 1 is the structural phase, where you do all the concrete stuff. Phase 2 is the equipment phase, where you integrate HVAC systems, piping systems, all the sanitary, then you have all the cable trays and this kind of stuff. And the third phase is the as-built phase, where you do all the finishing, the floors, spanish feelings, and this kind of stuff. So we have had three main phases, and then we really integrated the mobile scanning into the process, which means when the workers worked in the second floor, because they already finished the structural work in the first floor, and they work in the second floor, we scanned the first floor. And when they were working the third floor, we scanned the second floor. Yeah. And when they put there the electrical cable trays, we scanned the cable trays and this kind of stuff. At the end, we did 18 3D scans. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and that was my next question, and you described it a little bit there as well, especially if we talk about high-rise constructions and things like this. That means you're out there doing quite a lot of scanning and then managing that data depending on the different phases of the different pieces of the building at that time. Then the question for me is, so you went through this process, you identified the need, you've built in 3D scanning as a discipline, you've built it in as part of the standard process. So these three different phases of the delivery, the delivery piece of a building, at the structural, the services, and then the as-built. You've collected all the scan information. And you gave us a little bit of an insight already as to comparing the plans or the documentation to the reality. Let's have a little bit of a discussion about some of the other values or the things that you discovered along the way that you could use these 3D scans for to add value to the different stakeholders. Let's start with that first one that you've already described, which is comparing the plans. So comparing what's been approved, what's then expected to the real thing. How did that work when you started to use these 3D scans to really compare, even at the structural phase, the positioning and the what is really delivered compared to what's expected?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably let's talk a little bit about the pain what people have today. Yeah, today construction is a little bit a complicated industry, and there you have site consultants, a site supervision, whose job it is to control the construction progress for the owner. Mm-hmm. And construction is really complicated because you have, for example, equipment or outlets, for example, in the floor, but you just can't control them if they are built like they should until the floor is not there. Yeah. So the site supervision guys have often a hard time, let's say, really following the progress, because the contractors, they're also quite smart, and let's say do their things that quick that, let's say, you often afterwards cannot control everything. Yeah, did they really build like it was defined in the contract? Yeah, and their mobile scanning helped a lot because, as we integrated the scanning in the construction progress, the site supervision did not need to be there all the time, or at a specific time, we scanned it, and afterwards they could, let's say, take the scan and check the scan against the contract, So through this, it was easier for them to do all the project management, the tracking of the construction progress, and then this lead in, let's say, really good anti-claim management. Because afterwards we identified, for example, that there weren't enough outlets and that the documentation of the technical central units was not correct. And we could use the 3D scan to do anti-claim management and to get back money for the owner.
Yeah, right. So through that process, as you say, a site supervisor can't be everywhere. Someone who's responsible for checking the quality can't be at every single step of every single discipline along the way. So if you disappear for a day or you're somewhere else on site for a day, then certainly the walls or the floor or the ceiling go up, and what's behind them maybe you don't have the chance to see. So with these 3D scans, you're able to collect more information. And also set a staging, let's call it, that this scan must happen before the next step comes along, and that gives you that information. So I could imagine that would pay dividends throughout that whole construction phase right up until delivery day, because you have the chance to really look in detail into every part of the building that's scanned, and perhaps in more detail than you would be physically on site at the time. Once we get then to the operation phase, so the building is handed over, the scans are then as part of the as-built drawings. You've constructed this representation of the building as it's delivered, and through combining all of the information you collect through the BIM process, et cetera, you end up with this set of data that really represents the physical building. What happens next? What are some of the other use cases and some of the other values for the stakeholders that are operating the building, owning and operating and using that building?
Yeah, the cool thing is through this mobile scanning, we helped the site supervision really do a great job. We brought in transparency, and then the contractors at the end really deliver as-built data, because they cannot hide. And then the cool thing is, they again talk a little bit about the pain point. Without this process, it's like this, that the FM guys, they normally come into a project, let's say after the building is finished, and the contractors, mechanical general contractor, whoever, their main task is to say, they see already on the horizon, the construction project will be finished soon, let's quickly do our stuff and then run our way as quickly as possible, that we do not get in contact with the FM guy. And then the FM guy comes in later, and he has, let's say, some orders of documentation paper, and then he identifies often, this documentation does not reflect reality, and then he, let's say, has to do a lot of rework, or let's say go through all the material, check up if how the things work, is this really as-built and this kind of stuff, and and if we do our homework early on, integrate 3D scanning, bring in transparency, and get really good as-built data, the FM guy doesn't need to do this job again, so the value is, let's say, we can save time and money for the FM guy, because everything already fits together.
Yeah, perfect. And maybe a quick note before we move on, this is just that individual example. In general, we have a lot of great contractors out there that do a lot of great work, and I can imagine that this information that you collect through the 3D scanning can also be useful for them to really verify and check their work along that process. So we have that scan, we have the as-built documentation. It really does reflect what is on site. So this saves the facility manager a huge amount of effort when he comes and takes over through the operation phase. How about the owners and the operators, those that are responsible for the building, that's their asset, and they have to maintain and use it to generate the revenue or the business that they expect?
Yeah, for the owner, there's also a big value, because at the end, you can use the 3D scan for something called an indoor viewer from Navis. And also thank you for Navis to this great product, and which you use a lot. And the owner can use then this indoor viewer, which looks like a Google Maps indoor, also for marketing. for example, if he has some tenants or he wants to get new tenants, he, let's say, can show the people online, guide them like through the real building, but it's just virtual. In the viewer, you can also measure, let's say, for example, how high is the room, how bright is the room, and all this kind of stuff. So you can do all the marketing stuff a building owner needs to do today, and he can also give access to the tenants. And then also the FM guys can use this. And really important in this interviewer, it's also open to integrate other data. So for example, we integrated in there data from our building automation system. So you can look up in the interviewer, which is web-based, which is really easy to use, the live data from the building automation system. So you can look up there what's the current value of the pump, or what's the current value of the heating systems.
Yeah, right. So then the owner gets this asset, this information that doesn't just go in a drawer and sit there, but it really can be used for him, as you describe, to represent their building space, even to start to plan or think about things, maybe work with an architect for a fit out, or many different use cases that kind of information could be useful. And that last use case that you just described, where all of a sudden we have a space that not only can you navigate through it, but it also represents or delivers the live information that have been collected by the management systems. All of a sudden this is starting to give you real transparency on your building, and not just transparency right now, but then also back historically to say, what happened in this space, what components were put in here, when were they, where were they placed, etc. Anyone else on your list that you found through this experience that really benefited from bringing 3D scanning in as such an integral part of that delivery phase?
I think it's generally, you could say nearly everybody benefits a little bit, yeah. But the most important, for example, also the project managers and this kind of stuff in the construction phase, yeah. But in general, let's say it's really important to highlight that this mobile 3D scanning is something, let's say, which delivers value to many stakeholders, for like the site supervision, also the contractors, and then the FM guys, the building owners, the tenants. And it's really important that we, let's say, share also that values, and not that just one stakeholder does it for himself. Yeah, it's really important to share it, because let's say if you share the costs, then the return of invest for the values you get is much higher.
Yep. No, that's a good point, which I like, because it goes in line with the values or the core of the BIM process in general as well. Right? It's that collaboration, it's the sharing and the accessibility to data, and it's the single source of truth. The fact that everyone's working off the same information, which can deliver so many benefits, not just through that delivery phase, but then also moving into the operational phase. Maybe my last question on this topic. You went through this process. You did 18 different 3D scans throughout the building in this particular example. It delivered benefits for the construction company, for the owner in the end. You use it through the operational phase for facility managers, for the operational teams. What would your suggestion be if you were talking to a consultant, a company, a construction group of stakeholders that were about to kick off a project, and they were thinking about bringing 3D scanning in as one of these additional disciplines, as really a core part of the delivery phase, and then moving into the operational phase? What would your suggestion be, or a couple of notes that you discovered and learnt along this process?
At first, really at the beginning, think about, let's say, what kind of building you have, and what's your strategy in the building operations? So what's important in your building? Is it technical building operations? Is it energy efficiency? And then think about which use cases, digital twin use cases using BIM, IoT, mobile scanning, whatever, are important to leverage or support your strategy. Yeah? If you know this, then you can think back what kind of data, what kind of stuff you need to do in your construction process. Yeah. So at first, really think about this operations thing, And then think about step 2, what you need in the construction phase. Yeah? Because then, let's say, sometimes, it's also about prioritization. What is really important for you? Yeah? Do you want to do a full-fledged mobile scanning like we did, full integration? Probably you need, for you, the HVAC system is the most important, yeah, because you have some use cases which require this data. Yeah, then really focus on getting all the HVAC data, yeah, through the mobile scanning, yeah. And then let's say, so really focus. And the second thing is, the second and third thing is, then it's really think, if you know these use cases, then also think about integrating all the stakeholders. Yeah, so talk to the consultants, site supervision, talk to the contractors, talk to the FM guys, the owner, the project managers, the tenants, and think about how to share the value. Because if you share the value of the mobile scanning, then it's the return of invest is much easier to get. Yeah?
Understand. So like always, make sure you put in the thought to decide what you want to achieve, so that you have a direction and you have a place to get to. Then focus on those spaces so you can really control the effort, but then also make sure you do collect the information you need. And then the last one that you mentioned there, which is really the important one, bring everyone on board, find the value for every one of those stakeholders, and ensure that the content and everything that's discovered is shared effectively throughout the group. Kevin, thank you so much. A great conversation and a really great topic, which is something I think that we'll start to see more and more, hopefully, within our industry. So thanks for the discussion, and thank you for your time.
You're welcome, John. Really happy to be here again. Yeah.
I hope it's not the last time we have a discussion. I get the feeling there's more and more that we can talk about when we start to look at this application of the BIM process, the accuracy and the additional information that we can collect through that process that can be used and add additional value and continue to add value through that operation phase. And then some of these kinds of topics like 3D scanning, which is something that we see not as much as we could do. And as the technology becomes more powerful, I think it's a great thing to really discuss about how that can change the way that we do some things. And if that improves the quality of as-built drawings and delivers information that enables us to operate more effectively, then this is a win already for all involved. So thank you again, Kevin. Thank you to everyone that's listening to us today. Remember to like, share, comment this episode, subscribe to us wherever you're listening to us, and keep your eye out for more discussions together with Kevin on the topic of BIM and Digital Twin, but also other new episodes. We have one every week, so keep your eye open, and we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you.